You're listening to the Jets Factor on SoundCloud.com and the Grandstand Sports Network.
Third down snap. Sanchez to the end zone over Arrington, and touchdown, New York, Santonio Holmes.
Now, here's your host, CJ DeSimone.
What's going on, Jets Nation? Welcome to another edition of the Jets Factor podcast here on SoundCloud.com. I am your host, CJ the Painkiller DeSimone, and I am joined by two very special guests. We're going to be talking some New York Jets football. We're going to be reviewing a couple of things, such as the free agent signings for this week, Jets locking up a couple of more tight ends, wide receiver Quincy Enunwa signing his restricted free agent tender, and I'm sure the one thing that everyone is so excited about is the retention of Dakota Dozier and Brent Cavalli, and I say that sarcastically, but we're going to talk all about that. But first, let's have a word from our sponsors.
The Jets Factor podcast on SoundCloud.com is sponsored by the following entities. By Big C's Barbershop. When you need an old school cut, Big C's is the place to go for all your grooming needs. Call 772 area code 663-4440 or search up Big C's Barbershop on Google Plus to book your appointment now. Big C's is the place to be. By thegruelingtruth.net. The Jets Factor podcast is now accessible on thegruelingtruth.net. For a wide array of sports coverage, thegruelingtruth.net is your place to go. Gruelingtruth.net, where legends speak. By www.nyjetfans.com, your number one source for everything New York Jets, including yours truly's podcast. For a limited time, tees are on sale at nyjetfanshop.com for only $10. Get them while supplies last. Again, www.nyjetfans.com.
And, of course, don't forget to check us out on the Grandstand Sports Network. That is grandstandsportsnetwork.com. They have a brand-new Spreaker station. Be sure to go and check them out. Follow them on Twitter at grandstand_SN. So, let me bring on my two special guests today. I've been hyping this pretty much a good portion of the week, and we have a very special mystery guest who I'm not going to bring on just yet. But first, I want to bring on my very special guest, longtime listener of the show. He goes by Ant Bleiweiss on Twitter. Anthony Bleiweiss, welcome to the show. How are you today, my friend?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for taking some time to join us here, talking some New York Jets football here on the podcast. I hope you're keeping yourself safe over there in the ATL.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, we try our best out here, but, you know, the ghetto's the ghetto.
Yeah, exactly. I understand. And for those who don't know, Anthony is an emergency medical technician over in Atlanta. So from the bottom of my heart, my friend, I do want to say I thank you for your service every single day. EMS is the thankless service that doesn't get enough attention. So I appreciate what you do on a daily basis. I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there that do as well.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. I'm actually about a couple of weeks away from getting my paramedics.
All right. Congratulations. Well, as soon as you do, you got to let me know. We'll have you back on, and we'll do a big to-do for you. So being a paramedic is a very big deal.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, I was one for almost 11 years in the city of New York, so I know exactly what it entails.
I don't know how you did it, man.
Yeah, it was crazy, but we had a lot of fun. All right,
yeah,
so now I get to bring on my very special guest, and I've got some very special intro music for him. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, reports of his demise have been greatly exaggerated. Fresh out of the United States Marshals Witness Protection Program, he is known as CS Sardinas on Twitter. But ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to bring back the return of the Hitman, Sardinas! Carlos, how the hell are you, brother?
I'm doing fine. It felt like that was the appropriate response for such a build-up. CJ, it's great to be back. And, you know, I helped CJ kind of lift this show off the ground and did this for a few years on a weekly basis. I have been locked away in the witness protection program for my own sanity and the sanity of other Jets fans, because if I would have been on the show on a weekly basis, it would have really gone off the rails.
Yeah, but that was part of the plan. Come on now, you know?
Oh, well.
I love it when a plan comes together.
We'll definitely get off the rails, CJ. And, yeah, I won't be in hiding, much longer. I don't know if I'll be able to do it every week, but I'm going to be on much more regularly, my friend.
Well,
now,
hey,
is that a joke? Or are you actually in, like, the witness protection program? Like, you got to elaborate on this a little bit. Can't just let this slide.
Between you and me, it is a joke. That's what's going on the record.
Okay.
So, we cannot confirm nor deny about Carlos's participation in the United States Marshals Witness Protection Program. So I can only tell you about that. Anything else you need government clearance for. So.
Well, the way I landed here, guys, honestly, is because I finally convinced Mac that Hackenberg was a bust pick. That's how he ended up moving up to number 3. I've been working on it for the past year and a half, but again, that's just between you and us, right? We're not on record.
Heard. Got it. Don't let anybody else know about
it. Got it.
All right,
TJ. Edit that part out.
Jets football, buddy. There's a lot of things that have happened since I last was on. One of my favorite punching bags is no longer around, in old Chan Gailey. I used to really like making fun of him.
Yes. So, unfortunately, Chan Gailey took his hot pink dildo and went home. Went home to wherever home is.
So, all right, TJ, what do you want to talk about Jets-wise, man? There's a lot I haven't been able to. You've been doing it regularly, so steer the ship for us, and I'll contribute as best as I can here in my bunker.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I want to go over, as I started with the show tease, Jets' most recent free agent signings. I just want to go over them and we'll go around the room and get everybody's thoughts. Center Travis Swanson comes to us from Detroit. Started in 11 games last year, ended up on IR with a concussion. Now taking a look at the Jets' current depth chart, we have Spencer Long, which was signed at the beginning of free agency. We now have Jonathan Harrison, who was also retained, who stepped in for Wesley Johnson toward the end of the season and did quite admirably. And now the aforementioned Travis Swanson. Anthony, I'm going to start with you. What do you think? Will this signing now help to bolster this rather depleted and beleaguered New York Jets offensive line?
Will it help bolster? Yes. Is it a definite fix? I don't think so, because you still got Beachum and Carpenter there, and those are two guys that are part of an offensive line last year that allowed 47 sacks, most in the league, and with a team that's got a brand new quarterback possibly playing for it, or broken down Bridgewater playing, you can't be allowing that many sacks. But I do like Spencer Long, much better than Wesley Johnson in my opinion. You got the depth with Swanson. Yeah, a couple good moves, but, we still got a couple guys in the line I think need to ship out.
Carlos, your thoughts?
I mean, I think he helps bolster the offensive line depth, but that's pretty much what I think the Jets' strategy has been for years now. They're not going outside of maybe Spencer Long and not really getting the flashy splash signing, trying to build depth up competition. I hear that they gave up the 47 sacks, and while I agree that's not great, watching the team last year, I didn't get the impression during the game that we were losing because of the offensive line. I think if you rotate some of those guys in and out, build some cohesion, they'll be okay enough to not get someone killed. I think some of that had to do with skill players not getting separation and also hanging on to the ball too long, which has been a problem for the Jets for years.
Yeah, absolutely. I still would like to see McCagnon make some more moves on the offensive line. I definitely agree with Anthony. James Carpenter, Kelvin Beachum, you question how much more they have left in the tank. I mean, Beachum, I know, coming off of an injury. Maybe he was still hampered by the injury, and that's what caused him to underperform. I still would like to see more depth signing at those two positions. And, of course, when we talk offensive line, I also have to bring up, as I teased at the beginning of the show, bringing back Dakota Dozier and Brent Cavalli, again, helping with the O-line depth. But really, what good is it if the talent – Exactly. Sometimes when I read this, I said,
"No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!"
Pretty much, that's my original thoughts. I actually said that when they brought back Ben Nigelana, the $5 million man, who the Jets just can't seem to get rid of. No matter how much Roundup you spray on him, he still continues to pop up. So, again, with the depth that the Jets are bringing back. But see, here's the thing, and here's where I find it difficult for me to wrap my head around the concept as to exactly what Mac's plan is for the offensive line. Ben Nigelana, we know what he is. He's a fair to Midland player. He's not going to be a starter. He's good for emergencies for some particular points, but you know what? He's not just a bona fide starter. Dakota Dozier, I can understand bringing him back because he can play both the guard and the tackle position, so that does make him a viable asset to retain. And his play, though, has been spotty at best, but you could still plug him in an emergency situation, and he could still bust ass. But Brent Cavalli, there were times where he was non-existent on the field, and there was maybe one or two times that I could count where he actually made a halfway decent play, and that was because he only had to block one person. Okay, so to me, it's if you limit the amount of work that Brent Cavalli can do, I don't know if it's his ability to be able to multitask and be able to spin out, if it's a fundamental issue, if the guy's just stupid, or whatever the case is, but, I just don't see Cavalli making this 53-man roster. Yes, you want to create competition. Yes, you want to make sure that the guys who separate themselves, who are going to play hard, they're going to end up being your starters. And yes, it's always good to have a well of people just in case if people go down. I get that, but we've got to do better than Brent Cavalli. Guys, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, absolutely. You're talking about that whole one-on-one blocking ability and things. Yeah, that's just basic impact blocking. I mean, most offensive linemen should be the best one-on-one. It's when you get into those situations when you got a blitz coming, which is going to be, I can guarantee you, is going to be most of the time next season because they're going to be wanting to take advantage of this unproven offensive line. Especially if you got someone like Baker sitting back there behind center, man. You know they're going to be coming after his ass every time. And if you need a guy to switch up, like you said, to multitask, to spin out, I mean, he's not your guy. So at that point, who is there out there to get anymore? I mean, free agency's been going on for how long now? Month, 2 months now? And this is the best signings we've had in Spencer Long and the Swanson guy. I mean, you got to make more moves than that. And going into the draft, I mean, before we traded up, to get 3 spots closer, we had the first round pick at 6, and we had 2 second-round picks, a third-round pick, fourth-round pick, this and that. And then I'm like, okay, so worst-case scenario, we get stuck with Baker Mayfield or, the quarterback we don't exactly want. But we've got all these other picks in the draft to use to go pick up linemen. But now we've done lost all that opportunity, so the only way we can work is either a trade or free agency. So I think we kind of shot ourselves in the foot there just to go up 3 more spots in the draft. I mean, that's a Mac decision right there.
I got to disagree. I disagree with the evaluation of moving up to 3. I think if there's someone that you don't want to be stuck with or potentially have a chance where all 4 top prospects are gone, you got to go for it. If you think one of the top 3 is going to be a franchise quarterback, and being stuck with Baker Mayfield is not a bad thing because that is my homeboy, and he's got moves like Jagger. But beyond that, when we're talking about the offensive line, I think what we're really seeing is a combination of a lack of elite offensive line talent in the free agent market combined with, I believe, a strategy that devalues individual pieces of an offensive line and I believe tries to finding good value later in the draft, cheap signing, building a cohesive unit that other teams have employed as well. I just think the team doesn't value them. I mean, they've proven that over the course of the past 3 years that you're not going out and making huge splash signings on the offensive line. I mean, that tells you that's their strategy. Now, whether it's a good one or not is something else altogether. But, I think this team, you'll see some offensive linemen pick later on in the draft, 3rd, 4th round. But, Mac's proven that's not a position that they're valuing.
So I think I think moving up 3 spots is good if you definitely have a guy that you want, whether it's Baker or the Jewish kid from UCLA. Like, yeah, but was the ask too much with all those picks? Like, we were supposed to be rebuilding this team out of the draft, and now it just seems like we got our quarterback, and that's it.
But
like,
I need the quarterback. I mean, look at the Jets' track record in the second round. You might as well wipe your ass at those second-round picks that we gave away.
Absolutely.
I'm a big Rosen or Mayfield. I think, I don't know, there's talk about Allen going first. Whatever. I don't really know if that's going to be the case, but I'd take Rosen, Mayfield, Darnold, any one of those 3. And if someone tries to talk me into Josh Allen, I'm going to punch him in the throat, because that will prove to me that Sargent has not learned a freaking thing since he drafted Hackenberg in one of the biggest meltdowns I've ever had watching a Jets draft.
Bro, Rosen's got a cannon too, man. I was watching him play the other day. He can throw the ball, man.
Accurate, he's got really accurate. And he's got an arm. He's got everything you want. He's just getting saddled with some stuff that, it's all this intangible stuff that's coming out of there. And I don't know if I really buy a lot of that stuff. It's just, even his coach came out and said, oh, well, he's a millennial and blah, blah, blah. Like, who the hell's Jim Bora anyway? Go get a winning season for once before I listen to your mouth. I'll trust my eyes over your mouth. I mean,
that's pretty much what Carlos would say to Jim Moore.
There's some things on film you like him. His downside is he has other interests outside of football. Get the hell out of here, man. So does everyone else in that locker room. Shut up. So I'd be fine with Rosen. Baker Mayfield, I really liked what I saw when I watched him in college last year. The only thing that kind of worries me a little bit is just that you never saw him in an imperfect situation, hardly ever, because his offensive line was so great. He had so much talent around him. It was always a perfect situation, and you just don't know, hey, is he going to be able to improvise and do well under real duress? But everything else looks good. His arm looks good. I like his moxie. Like I said, like his dance with, but I like his attitude. Hopefully the maturity continues to grow. I think a lot of the things that happened off the field and even on the field aren't quite desirable, but aren't, don't put him on my do not draft list at all. I really like the quarterback play.
Yeah, back to the offensive line. How do you guys think that Dennison's going to do meshing with Bates and the whole new offensive coordinator and all that? How do you think that? Because I know we just got Dennison to run the O-line. What do y'all think about that?
Carlos, I'm going to let you answer this one first.
I think he'll mix into the competition, but again, it's just another pretty good depth signing in my opinion. Just like anyone else, I don't think there was anyone that was spectacular that we brought in outside of Long, and we'll see how that goes. To play the offensive line. We'll see what happens. There's going to be a lot of cuts. There's probably going to be some surprise cuts, too, that we're not expecting right now. Not everyone you mentioned earlier, CJ, is going to make it, even though they've been brought in.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. As a matter of fact, as far as Dennison is concerned, I think that his meshing with Jeremy Bates might actually be the best thing that happens for Gangrene at this point, because remember something. Dennison was coached with the Buffalo Bills. This is a Buffalo Bills team last year that was ranked dead last, at the start of the season for offensive line play. They ended up being ranked just outside of the top 10. And this is a team that had to scratch and claw its way to get into the playoffs, with also a little bit of luck. So, believe it or not, I think that Dennison has the opportunity right now to really mold and fit this Jets offensive line the way that he would like it to, especially in the scheme that Jeremy Bates is looking at. Because the Jets are still going to be a ground and pound team, but it's going to be a ground and pound type hybrid where there's a lot of design rollouts, there's a lot of play action, there's a lot of things where the quarterback will actually be able to remove himself from the pocket and be able to make plays with his feet. This is where I think Baker Mayfield or Lamar Jackson would actually thrive in a system like this that Jeremy Bates is installing. So it still remains to be seen. I do agree with Carlos. There's probably going to be a lot of surprise cuts. There's going to be guys that are probably going to be cut from this roster. Last year we saw Eric Decker, they completely bungled Eric Decker's release in the worst possible way. And, of course, David Harris, they just gave him a kick in the ass right after they asked him to practice and to hold a press conference, and then gave him his walking papers. So,
it's ridiculous.
There is still going to be, there's going to be some surprise cuts. There's going to be a lot of things that may make us scratch our head. But you know what? Again, the rebuilding process is going to continue. And I have faith in this process. We have to have faith in this process. Otherwise, we get stuck in the curmudgeon-y thinking. But that's for another day. So anyhow, moving on. I did want to talk about the tight end position. The Jets picked up a couple of pretty decent tight ends this week. Clive Walford being released from Oakland. Apparently, John Gruden is purging, half the half the Los Angeles / Oakland / Las Vegas, or wherever the hell they're going to end up next year. Okay, we ended up signing Clive Walford, and then we also picked up tight end Bucky Hodges. So now here's my question to you, gentlemen. We went from having one good tight end in ASJ who we let walk out the door over a pissing match over $1 million. Okay, we now, if you take a look at our depth chart, have 3 to 4 really good tight ends on this team that could potentially blossom. And our depth chart looks like this: Eric Tomlinson, Jordan Leggett, which is a big question mark because he was on injured reserve last year, Neil Sterling, who played some games toward the end of last season and actually really started to come on, and who actually started seeing more playing time with Austin Seferian-Jenkins being on the bench. Now the aforementioned Clive Walford, and now Bucky Hodges. So, gentlemen, your thoughts. We went from having, no tight ends to now, 5. So, What are your thoughts about that? Anthony, we'll start with you.
I think it's good. I mean, anytime you get, plus we're going to lose 1 or 2 of them eventually. I mean, I don't see a team carrying this many tight ends going into the season. But you look at the whole line. I mean, you got Tomlinson, Sterling, Lazy, Lumpy, Lucky, Leggett, Craig, Walford, now Bucky Hodges. I mean, I like Hodges, man. He's got size and he's got serious speed. If you didn't see his combine from a couple years ago, I think he ran like a 4.45 or some crazy number, just super duper fast. And to have a team that has a bunch of good tight ends on it is good, especially if you have a young quarterback coming in who's getting a lot of pressure. I mean, you've got big guys you can just throw the ball to in situations where you don't have enough time to throw the deep ball. And a couple of these guys, especially Hodges, I mean, you're looking at possible red zone threats too. Tall, fast, that's what you need. And I think in that respect, we've done good on the tight end situation. I like it.
So I kind of like it still. I think there's some talent there. We got to worry about the injury, of course. That's the concern. But I was projecting him to possibly just be the starter, and maybe they bring in the depth guy if he could stay healthy, and I would have been okay with that. Bringing in Walford, I actually think is an underrated move because I don't think you lose a whole lot from him versus ASJ. He was actually a touchdown maker a couple years ago as well, and then for some reason they just stopped using him in Oakland last year. But he could do pretty well, and you save quite a bit of money from not having to pay ASJ. And, Bucky Hodges, we'll see. There'll be, again, some good competition there. Not everyone's going to make it. You'll probably have 3 just because I think Leggett may not be quite ready or, you have the injury concern.
Right.
I'm pretty impressed, though, with the Walford pick. I really like that. Not pick, but signing. I think Jets did well there.
Yeah, I think they did well overall too. You look at Tomlinson too, man. Tomlinson, I think he showed some brightness last year. He caught some good passes, and I think that's another good, depth tight end that we have. It looks bright, I think.
Yeah, I liked him blocking too, actually. I like Tomlinson. I don't know about him, but I really liked him blocking, and I think that's what's going to make him stick. We'll see. Someone pretty good is not going to make it out of those 4, unfortunately.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I agree with that. I wouldn't be surprised if, believe it or not, it could possibly be either maybe Eric Tomlinson. Tomlinson has a little bit better blocking skills than Sterling. Sterling has more of the pass-catching ability, but does have, marginal blocking skills. So it's all going to depend on with mini camps, OTAs, and then, of course, actual training camp to see who really will take that step up to really stand. It's going to be very interesting to see. But
do you think that the Jets are going to speed through that position like they did last year, though?
Yeah, one of the things with last year, the problem that they had with the tight end position was the fact that you had a lot of mismatches, and I truly believe that ASJ was not utilized properly. They started using him at the beginning of the year. They started getting sizable matches, but then it started where right after the touchdown that was negated from the Patriots, okay, right after that, you started seeing ASJ with less time. Then after that, you started seeing ASJ with less time. And then eventually, for I think the last 6-7 games of the season, he saw like maybe 3-4 snaps out of the entire game, maybe 5-6 snaps or something. So, I mean, Jeremy Bates has to find a way to be able to incorporate his big tight ends into this offense to create those mismatches versus those cornerbacks, sort of the way how the Patriots exposed people with Rob Gronkowski. Okay, I mean, you have Gronkowski running post routes where he's up against a slot corner, where he's up against a cornerback or a nickelback, and he completely dominates them because he's got the size advantage, he's got a hand advantage, he's got a skill advantage. So the Jets need to kind of steal a touch out of the Patriots' playbook and be able to utilize those tight ends. So, and to me, I think that a good tight end, a good catching tight end, is a young quarterback's best friend. And I don't understand why, even when we had Bryce Petty in there, okay, even when Christian Hackenberg was playing in the preseason, why there were no design sets where if first read is not there, second read's not there, dump off to your tight end. You know, last year, just based on what I was saying, we ended up using the tight end almost out of necessity. Once you lost Enunwa, who in years past had almost played a de facto tight end role in the slot, a hybrid, right? Now, that's why I asked the question, because he's coming back. I don't think he's going to play on the outside 100%. I think he's going to be used in that capacity. You know, so you're kind of mixing him in with your Tomlinsons or your Walfords or whomever you choose is going to be your tight end of this group. And so I don't know if we're really devaluing it because we've got someone that has that skill set. He's just not called, quote unquote, a tight end. Right. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see Enunwa back in the H-back spot. I mean, look, our backfield went from having nobody to now being overcrowded, where I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing Bilal Powell, you know, either cut or traded at some point, which you know, I can understand because he's getting into his 30s. But, you know, to me, it's still.
I don't think he's enough there to cut him. I mean, we haven't talked about the signings for the running back position, so I don't want to get out of turn necessarily. But, you know, you look at the signings that the Jets have done, and I think that's in part because we lost those draft picks. We're not going to be able to really take a running back unless it's just a shot in the dark until later in the draft.
Right.
So that's why you go and sign a guy that's, 25 in Crowell, and you take a dart throw with Rawls, who is 24, I believe. And, you know, last year and a half he's been hurt, but he came on pretty strong with the Seahawks when he came in for Marshawn Lynch a couple years ago with that line was starting to become Jack you-know-what back then, too. It's a dart throw, but that's the kind of drafting a running back without drafting a running back with a pick kind of move that McCagnon made there, in my opinion. But I still don't think there's a whole lot behind that, and I think there's a role for Powell in this offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that a lot of people thinking that you know, Bilal Powell possibly may be dealt on draft day to a team that's running back needy. I don't see how that could be possible, considering this is another draft where they have a deep draft class of running backs. So, yeah, I highly doubt that Bilal Powell is going to be traded. He may end up being cut and maybe brought back on a restructured deal, but that doesn't make sense either because he only costs you $6 million. So, I mean, you know, if anything, you know, I don't see all four of these running backs sitting back. The biggest question mark to me is going to be Thomas Rawls because you pointed it out. He's been constantly hurt over the past year and a half. And the one thing that the Jets truly need that we've missed since Chris Ivory, that big, bruising, downhill runner. And we just don't have it on this roster right now.
No, and Crowell should be that, but he forgets he's as big as he is sometimes if you watch him when he was with the Browns. Like, he could be that if he really put his mind to it. He's a decent overall back, but sometimes he forgets he could really plow in there. He'll get what's blocked for him, though. I mean, he's all right. Again, I think that's another position the Jets have treated as all right, well, yes, we signed Matt Forte a few years ago, but that wasn't exactly an extravagant deal, and he was coming off a pretty bad year in Chicago. So it was a cheap deal. It's another position I think the NFL and the Jets particularly kind of devalue. They're going to mix him in. I think Powell has a role because he's been a steady guy over the past few years, and that means something, right? And McGuire flashed last year too. I agree. I think Rawls is kind of the dart throw, and he may not make it. We'll see what happens there. But outside of maybe an undrafted free agent or a late-round draft pick, I don't see much else competition really coming in.
I mean, you see, with Rawls, you talk about him being off the injury. I mean, that's just the kind of, with his style of play, that's just what you're going to get. I mean, if you're plowing into the line almost every time, you're going to come up with a couple injuries. That's the risk you take with Rawls, which, I mean, the risk for us it's not that high. We're not going out spending $15, $20 million on this guy. It's not that big of a deal. But, I mean, you do get you bring up the point. We're going into camp. We have so many running backs. We've got so many tight ends at this point. What'll happen? We'll go into training camp. Everyone's gonna like Tomlinson and Powell, and then at the end they'll cut them. The Patriots will pick them up and they'll score 75 touchdowns, as it always happens.
I mean, of course, that's what happens.
But I mean, yeah, we got depth. I like the running back. Crowell, I've never really dogged on Crowell. There's, like you said, I mean, you're throwing a dart. Maybe one sticks, maybe one doesn't. We need consistency at the position, if anything. We need to have that guy, we can count on 3rd and 1 or 2nd and 2, just to get a few yards. Because we're throwing all our money into the tight ends, and we got wide receivers now. This is going to be. This looks like it can turn out to be a passing offense.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? You got to have consistency at the running back position if you want to be a successful team in the NFL. I mean, it's just no bones about it.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, Anthony, you set me up great for the next segue. I actually wanted to talk about the wide receivers. We've been talking about Quincy Enunwa a little bit. He signed his restricted free agent tender. Jet fans are very happy that he's going to be coming back. Hopefully he's going to come back to the Quincy Enunwa that he was before the neck injury, but that still remains to be seen. But nevertheless, if you go and take a look at the Jets wide receiver core now, that wide receiver core room is actually very crowded if you think about it. Between Jermaine Kearse, Ardarius Stewart, Chad Hansen, they brought in Andre Roberts, they brought in Terrell Pryor. So, it's going to be curious to see how all of that is going to shake out. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the wide receiver position at this time. Carlos, I'm going to start with you this time.
I mean, we're going 5 wide, right? That's what we're going to be doing. That's what it sounds like. I think low-key the Jets wide receiver core is underappreciated around the NFL. I kind of like what we have. Robby Anderson, it just came out, the charges are being dropped or whatever else is going on. It's not going to be a severe penalty, we hope. I think he's got all the skills in the world, man. And if you got a quarterback that could get it to him, he's going to be great. I really do think he's a special talent, and not a lot of people really do. They just think he's a really fast guy. I know he could frustrate you with the drops a little bit. You could probably polish up his route running. But, I mean, for an undrafted kid, he could blaze. He could burn anybody. And I like him. Terrell Pryor, he really did not do well in Washington last year at all. But prior to that, he did pretty good in Cleveland. I think he could have a role playing on the outside as well. He's a little redundant playing opposite Robby, but, you could probably mix those two in. I think the Jets weren't quite sure if they were going to have Robby for part of the season, to be honest, which is why they pursued Terrell Pryor. Jermaine Kearse came up with clutch catches over and over again last year, and big games at time to time. And we mentioned Enunwa. I don't know if there's room for him on this team. Honestly, the Jets really didn't seem to like them last year too much, and when they did get opportunities, there's a little bit of a mixed bag. I know they're young, but there's a ton of competition for probably going to be 5 or 6 spots at most. And I'd expect you might not see Ardarius Stewart on the roster. Again, it's early, but it's a possibility.
All right, Anthony, your thoughts?
I like the wide receiver core we got. I like how they played last year. So Robby Anderson really flashed, and so did Jermaine Kearse for a while. And now you got Quincy Enunwa coming back. Those are your 3 right there. You got Terrell Pryor. That's just a speed guy right there. That's somebody with like a 4.3 40 kind of deal, man. That's a long ball, deep threat possibility right there. You 5 wide. I mean, I don't know if we want to go that far, but yeah, you've got deep. You've got some deep.
Well, Enunwa, as long as those 5, man, I could see it from time to time. Not going to be a regular set, but you see a lot of 4 wides. I could easily see 4 wides happening in this offense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You talk about the Enunwa. Jets fan, we've been waiting for him to come back forever now, man. He's supposed to be our number 1 guy, our top ace receiver, and to see him actually coming back healthy is going to be very, very interesting to see. But what he does with the neck, yeah, I like Quincy. I love Quincy. Quincy, Robby, Kearse, and Pryor. Those are your 4 right there, and see who else can make the cut.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I can't disagree with either one of those points. I think that, Carlos, you touched upon it perfectly. The Jets wide receiving core is probably the most underappreciated receiving core in the NFL because, Robby Anderson brings a tremendous dynamic. That's why, a lot of fans were incredibly disappointed and incredibly outraged about him getting in trouble, and especially him getting arrested twice within a 9-month span. And, now that the felony charges have been dropped against him, it's going to be curious to see what the league penalty is going to be. Instead of 4 games, I could see him getting maybe 2 games, which could, believe it or not, not do as much damage as originally thought of, because we were thinking there could be a possibility that he could be suspended anywhere between 4 to 6 games, which could significantly, damage this wide receiving core, hence the reason for bringing in an Andre Roberts and a Terrell Pryor to kind of make up the difference a little bit. But all that aside, fans talking about Jermaine Kearse possibly being cut or possibly being traded, I think that's absolutely ridiculous, and nonsense just needs to stop. Jermaine Kearse.
Why? I don't even understand the logic. Why?
Right. Well, Jermaine Kearse I have no idea. I just think it's just trolls just wanting to troll, or just saying, oh, well, now we could go out and get another wide receiver. I know a lot of people were high on Allen Robinson or trying to get Jarvis Landry, and when they signed someplace else, then everybody was like, oh, well, the Jets screwed the pooch on this.
No, they didn't. Good God, that frustrated me so much, just observing from afar in the off season and seeing fans getting upset because we're not overspending at the wide receiver position. That's how the Patriots have made a living, outside of a couple of exceptions.
Right.
There's a lot of great teams that do not overpay for wide receivers because it's a fairly interchangeable position.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
there's an elephant in the room, and the elephant is you've got your 3-4, you got your Odell Beckhams, you've got your Amari Coopers or whatever. You've got like your 3 or 4 best receivers in the league, and really, if you don't, I'll say it. The rest of them are really a dime a dozen. You got a couple guys who are a little bit faster than this guy, who can jump a little bit better than this guy, but like you said, it's a fairly interchangeable position. I'm not going to go out and spend $20 million on a receiver when I can spend the money on a better offensive line or more reliable running back or another really good tight end. I'm not going to spend that kind of money or even spend it on the other side of the ball on the defense for a good linebacker. Like, linebackers aren't a dime a dozen. Quarterbacks aren't a dime a dozen. There's for every one great receiver, there's 10, pretty good ones. That's just the game we play. That's just how it is.
Yeah. And considering how the rules really have been in the favor of the wide receiver and receivers in general, where it's tougher to cover that position, you get fast guys that can catch the ball. There's plenty of those around. It's not, back in Jerry Rice's day anymore. It's not back with the duper days, back in Miami, where you had to push off and you really had to be physical. Like you said, outside of the top 4, and even them, there's not a lot of winning that happens with a top-tier wide receiver, generally speaking. Not saying that you can't win with a top-tier wide receiver, but you look at the teams that have been winning Super Bowls over the past few years, and I think one of the better ones was Alshon Jeffrey last year. And he was on a prove-it deal until they re-signed him in the middle of the season.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, if you're fast and can catch a ball, that's really all. I mean, you're like you said, it's not like it's back in the '80s anymore, where you got strong physical, be able to push off, do this, do that. I mean, you've got teams who are spending. Look, I mean, I hate to change the focus, but look at the Falcons. They've got over half their payroll in 3 guys, being Matt Ryan, Devontae Freeman, and Julio Jones. And Julio Jones, I mean, you've got possibly the best receiver in the league, and you can't even you can't win a Super Bowl. Like that's the whole point. Like, you're giving this guy all this money, you're expecting all this success, and it's not coming. It's not there. Look at the receiver core we had back in 2009 and 2010. We went to back-to-back AFC championships. What, Lavernius Coles? Like, I mean, you don't need to have the best receiver in the league to win a Super Bowl. If you've got a couple pretty good, decent ones and a great rest of the team, you're good to go. And the Patriots are a perfect example of that.
Yep, actually, I remember that 2009-2010 team. We ended up picking up Santonio Holmes in the middle of the season. That helped us out. And then 2009, we ended up picking up Braylon Edwards pretty much for a song when the Cleveland Browns let him go. And you know what? I mean, they had Jericho Cotchery, they had Brad Smith. They had players on that team where they're not household names, but when you needed them to make plays, they were there. So,
Absolutely.
I definitely agree. And I although I was disappointed, I did want to get Allen Robinson, but I didn't want to overpay for him, much like same thing with Kirk Cousins. You wanted to bring him in, to be your franchise quarterback, and you wanted to hand him the checkbook and have him write his own ticket. But at the same right, you also have to understand you have other needs on this team to fill. So, that I can definitely see the argument there, and I just don't understand the concept of why fans would want to get rid of Jermaine Kearse. He's locked up under contract. The Jets are not going to trade him. His experience in even winning a Super Bowl, he's brings so much veteran leadership to that locker room. It would just be foolish and really stupid for the Jets to let him go. So
okay. Yeah. You mentioned something there that I've been wanting to comment on with the Kirk Cousins things. I saw so many Jets fans jerking themselves off for weeks. Oh, man, I can't wait till we sign Kirk Cousins. He's going to be the best quarterback we've had in a while. You know how many options Kirk Cousins had before you get to the Jets and let's call it what it is. It's a rebuild. The only thing the Jets would have had is more money, and that's not what he was looking for when he was leaving Washington. He wanted a place where he could win, and obviously he wanted to play in a temperature-controlled stadium as well. The Vikings met that criteria, but I just remember, oh man, yeah. Honestly, I think that it would have been a mistake to sign Kirk Cousins. Go get your franchise quarterback for the next decade if you think that's who's out there. Yes, he's good, but good God, he was bad against actually good teams. I have a lot of Redskins fans, and I've watched games with them, or fans as friends, and I've watched games with them, and I watch Kirk Cousins. I'm like, yeah, he's great against bad teams. So we'll be the Detroit Lions and linger in mediocrity for the next 5 years. That's not what I want to sign up for.
I remember
it did not work out that way, and the Jets are in line to pick a quarterback, sink or swim with it. I think this is a better approach. Go get a young guy that you think could be the franchise quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I remember everybody was all talking about Kirk Cousins, and the Jets have all this salary cap space. We're gonna spend the most money on him. It's pretty much a lock. I'm like, dude, like when I hear that we might be interested in a player, I'm gonna go ahead and look him up. I'm gonna search him up and find out who he is. Dude, Kirk Cousins is one of the most penny pinching dudes, if not the most penny pinching dude in the NFL. This dude drives a minivan that he's owned for 15 years in the stadium. Like, he does not care. He's got plenty of money. He could retire today and be set. I'm like, he's not looking for money. He's looking to go to the best place for him, whether it's to win or the best system. He's not looking for money. So when we lost out on Cousins, everyone's like, oh, what are we doing? We're going to be terrible. Baker Mayfield, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
and then we go ahead. Yeah, and then we go ahead and we sign, which I think is the best signing, Josh McCown, TDMC, touchdown McCown, $10 million. Give it to him. Give him all the freaking money. He's going to be the best bridge to the next young quarterback that we get. I love the signing of touchdown McCown, man.
I want him to play for the Knicks. Like, let's just, I mean, we'll just lend him to the Knicks in the off season, and him and Porzingis will make it the white boy city once again.
Absolutely, bro, dude. Yes.
Oh my goodness. All right.
No, I love McCown, man. I think that was a great move.
All right. So one last thing, I did want to bounce off of you guys. Pretty much last point of the show. Jets were eyeing Jonathan Hankins, the ex-Colt. Now, he did visit the Jets on Thursday. I do believe that he left without a deal getting done, but the latest reports is that the two sides are still, in fact, talking. Thoughts on that? Anthony, we'll give you the floor on this one.
We can definitely use him. I'll tell you that. I was huge on the Ndamukong Suh. I wanted Suh on the team so bad. He was a perfect fit for the 3-4 attack defense that we run. It would have been great. He would have been able to lock up two guys at least every time and really let the linebackers come in and do some work. I was really upset when we ended up losing out on Suh. So, I mean, the next man down, Hankins, I'll take it. We need a solid defensive tackle on the team. We need someone to replace, what Mo Wilkerson was supposed to be that he didn't turn out to be anything. I hope Wilkerson flounders, man. I hope he plays 2 more games and they cut him. Like there was nobody on the planet, maybe other than CJ, that was more upset about Muhammad Wilkerson at the end of the season last year. So it's still a position we need to fill, and that's a guy we can really use. I heard I think the Cowboys ended up getting Ely. I like Coney Ely, but I mean we got these gaps at D tackle, and he's definitely one that I would love to see us sign. He's got size, he's got speed, he's got the height, he's got the weight. I like it.
Yeah, everything you said. The only thing I agree with everything you said. So I'm not going to take long. The only thing I want to add is Suh. I also would have loved to see him. He would have been the perfect combination of what Sheldon Richardson was supposed to be and Mo Wilkerson in one. And we just missed out on him. He went to the Rams. It is what it is. So yeah, we'll go get Hankins. Let's get her done. I want to talk a little bit more on the defensive side, CJ, before we end up, because there were some signings there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Trumaine Johnson definitely helps out.
Love it.
Re-signing of Mo Claiborne, Avery Williamson to the linebacking core, which obviously Demario Davis ended up signing someplace else. I actually think that was a great pickup. I think Avery Williamson will definitely help out. Also, we signed a linebacker, St. Pierre. I had his name written down here. Anyhow, I believe his last name is St. Pierre. He came over from the Chiefs. He was actually pretty good, very solid special teams contributor. So I'm sure he'll contribute. Fire away, brother. Floor is yours.
All right, I'll go real quick. Trumaine Johnson, love the signing. There's one thing I want Jets fans to stay aware of. Between him and Mo Claiborne, I'm glad we brought them both back. We have 2 legit corners. They are prone at times to get completely torched because they're so aggressive. So the safeties are going to have to be on their heels. I'm interested to see how we kind of play that out on the back end of the defense. Anthony, I'd love your thoughts on how you think that'll play out.
I mean, you're talking about needing safety coverage, man. I think we got the best 1-2 combination of safeties in the league right now. Jamal Adams came in here last year and just completely took the team over. I love his attitude. I love the way he plays. He plays 110% on every single play. Marcus May is solid too. I mean, if you need to rely on a couple safeties, I love the fact that these are the 2 safeties that we're relying on. Trumaine Johnson, I mean, he was part of the Rams defense that was really, really solid last year. And coming over to the Jets, bringing that over, a good, solid, definite number 1 corner is a grade A in my book. Mo Claiborne, he's kind of coming up there in age a little bit. We'll see how the wear and tear on to see if he can make it the whole season next year. I like the corners. I like the safeties. Like I said before, we need help on the D line. But I mean, I'm gonna be 100% Jamal Adams' mark, his entire time that he's here, man. I mean, I can't get enough of the kid. He brings the attitude this team needs. He's a leader on the defense. And he was a rookie last year, and he came in and totally took the team over. I mean, that's a guy you hang your hat on right there. And,
I agree with what you said about the safeties. I agree with you on the safeties. I actually think that the Jets are able to go get guys that are risk takers on the outside, in Claiborne and in Johnson, because they know they'll have support on the back end when you're going deep, and you can't do that unless you have two strong safeties. So if you look at like the strategy on the defensive side over the past couple of years, it really plays into each other very well. But you had to take the long view on that one, and I'm guilty of not having had the long view on that one. I'll completely admit that. So I was a little bit like, what are we doing two safeties so early? But I think that'll work out in the back end with these two corners. Good signings. Williamson, I think, will help us in coverage at the linebacking position. Demario Davis was much better than I thought he would be last year, but I think Williamson is a little bit of an upgrade too there as well, all around game. So I like it. Overall, good signings, still good value signings. Across the board, the Jets still have a lot of cap flexibility heading into next season with the way they've structured a lot of these signings, and not really gone drunken crazy with the signings and committing a ton of guaranteed money.
You bring up a great point in that, Carlos, because one of the things that Mike Maccagnan has been criticized about is his contracts. But you see, here's the thing. Every player that he has signed has a team-friendly deal. Okay, if you take a look at Crowell, all right, we could opt out of his contract after next year if he doesn't work out. Same thing with Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater, everyone was saying that like,
over there? Sorry,
Teddy Bridgewater.
Teddy Bridgewater.
Teddy B.
Teddy Bridgewater's contract, all right, was initially, it's only for $5 million guaranteed, but he's got incentives and stuff up to $15 million. Once that number was put out there on social media, fans took it and ran with it. It was like, oh my God, what is Mac doing? We got $25 million locked up between two quarterbacks that are not going to be here next year. No, it was a smart signing because I'm glad that the Jets took a flyer on Teddy Bridgewater. You bring him in for that extra quarterback competition. You know that you're going to get nothing for Bryce Petty. Okay, you're going to get less than nothing for Christian Hackenberg, so you may as well cut the both of them now. Okay, I mean, you're lucky if you get a lightly used jockstrap for the two of them put together and a ham sandwich. Okay, so, I mean, it's the fact of the matter is that Teddy Bridgewater being brought in just accentuates the competition. Josh McCown, the perfect bridge quarterback to Baker Mayfield or Josh Rosen or whoever we draft, not named Josh Allen at the number 3 pick. My thoughts on the Jets trading up to number 3 have been well documented. I've been going off on this for the past couple of weeks. So to me, the fake Jets media could take their clickbait stories and shove them up their ass. The Jets made smart, calculated decisions, team-friendly contracts in which if things don't work out, they can dump them off at the end of the year with minimal cap hit. And keep in mind, the Jets next year are going to have $106 million in cap space. So this is not the end of the triple-digit, cap room era for the New York Jets. So the rebuild is in full force, but Mike Maccagnan has to hit on that number 3 pick, or otherwise, he may never get another GM job in the NFL again if he blows on this pick.
Titty B. Yeah, that is going to be his nickname from now on. Titty B,
baby.
Yeah, the rebuild is definitely in full effect, and it was in pretty full effect going into last season too. And I remember talking about it before the season. I think it was opening day, or it was the opening day of the league or whatever, and I put out on Twitter or something like that. Like, we're not expecting a lot, but it's just going to be really exciting to see kind of the development of this young team. Like, it's just watch the guys go through their progressions. We're not going to win a lot of games. Everybody was expecting us to go 0-16. We were supposed to be the new Browns. People are still calling us the new Browns. And it's like, okay, yeah, we went in with such low expectations, and, we end up winning 5 games.
Look, the Browns don't even want to be the Browns, for God's sakes.
Exactly. But, Ben, this team won 5 games last year like this. I think we're going into this season with a more improved team. We've got Quincy coming back. We're going to have a new young franchise quarterback. This team's on the up and up. I'm expecting more than I'm expecting a bit more than 5 wins this year. And this team's got a lot of potential.
I think that, believe it or not, with a little bit of luck, and I'm actually going to go through this on one of the future shows. I haven't quite gone into the schedule just yet, but hopefully, Carlos, if you're available and you could join me on the schedule show, we'll give our predictions for the year. So I'm going to hold off on that, but I definitely say that the future is really, really looking bright for Gang Green in New York City. And just another thing, the New York Jets hate in the media is real. It's been that way for the past few years, and everybody just keeps trying to sugarcoat it, and everybody keeps trying to laugh at us and so on and so forth. I think that these New York Jets are finally going to put an end to that old term, same old Jets, because, again, that falls under the line of curmudgeonly thinking, and we'll talk more about that another time. But anyhow, I'm going to go around the room real quick. Carlos, we're going to start with you. Final thoughts before we end the show. Go.
Titty B.
I knew that was coming. Anthony, you're up.
Titty B.
All right, why not? Let's make it the hat trick. Let's make it the hat trick, baby. Titty B, baby. He's going to be the starter. If not, he'll be swinging from that pole on the sidelines or something.
I'm full in McCown camp until we get the rookie going, but I do like the signing of good old Titty B. The money's not a huge deal. He's young. He showed that he could play, and if he could turn it around, we have a young quarterback that might be a trade asset down the road that we got for virtually nothing when you really think about it. So good signing there. Let's go. Josh McCown probably start a few games, to start the season, and let's go from there. Let's go get it, boys. I'm excited for this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Solid team, solid, looking real solid going into the offseason. Let's see how training camp progresses. You say a few games. I say TDMC takes us all the way to the big show. TDMC, touchdown McCown, my boy, number 1, with the cannon, laser beam arm. Nah, he's pretty good. I like him. He's solid. He's going to bridge us to the next quarterback. Let's get him in for a few games. Let's see if the kid's ready to go, whoever the kid's going to be, whether it be Baker or Rosen or, hopefully Allen, CJ. Allen, the best pick out there.
No, God, please, no. No, Josh Allen.
No Allen. But I still like the safety. I love my safeties. The corners look solid. Linebackers, maybe we can afford to pick up 1 or 2, down the road. Darren Lee, I think, is coming back, right? I like Darren Lee showed some brightness last year, too, to me. Let's get Hankins locked in. Let's get a solid D to go into the season. I like our chances coming in. I'm not talking about wild card or playoffs by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think 7 or 8 games are out of the question. Like you said, we'll save that for another show.
I think all of Jets Nation agrees with you on this. So, gentlemen, that's going to be it for this edition of the Jets Factor podcast here on SoundCloud.com and the Grandstand Sports Network. I would like to thank my guest, Carlos the Hitman Sardinas, at CSS Sardinas. You can follow him on Twitter, and Anthony Bleiweiss, at Ant Bleiweiss, otherwise known as B Swizzle Baby. All right? Woo. So, for JetsFan0523 on Twitter and at CNC Jets Factor, you could also follow the show on Facebook. We actually have a Facebook page, www.facebook.com/The Jets Factor. Make sure you smash that like button. Send us an email, thejetsfactor@gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time out to listen to our humble podcast. And we will see you guys when we see you guys.
BB.
what you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.